Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today I actually wanted to have a little bit of a discussion with you guys at what I think the future of gearing is looking like and some of the pros and some of the cons I think that might be popping up when it comes to the recent update, the recent headline that we have for next week's update. But if you guys are new here, my name is Chrono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate subscribers. Work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch the headline, first off, we actually did coverage of the headline. We watched it live as we usually do, but we also did a video where we went down and went through everything new that's coming out and gave our thoughts on all of it. So, if you're more curious about like that reaction or that explanation of things, you can check out that video over on the channel. Or if you like those first reactions, we did upload that as well. I want to give people more of an option when it came to digesting that content. So feel free to check out either one or check out both if you're an absolute gamer. But I wanted to talk today about what I think the gearing process is going to be like moving forward. So we had the announcement of a few things. A new set of weapons, an 11-star weapon that's coming out, and the augmentation transfer system. Now, both of these things are huge. With the 11-star weapon, I know some people were concerned at first, but it's basically the best case scenario of what I assumed was going to happen. I assumed either we would get a new 11-star and then we'd also get augmentation transfer, or the new 11-star that we got would be a vehicle to deliver some new sort of system, and it wouldn't be stronger than the current weapons that we have. Lo and behold, we got both actually. So we got a new 11-star. This is up in the air. We don't know for certain because the augment or the potency, I guess not potency, I'm sorry, the potential that they described is insane. So we don't know for sure if it's stronger or weaker just yet. We'll have to wait until that weapon comes out and we'll do our comparison as we usually do next week. But they said the weapon is weaker than our Wingard series weapons. I don't know if that's just base damage wise or whatever it happens to be. But they said it is a weaker weapon. However, it does have these new augments called EX augments. And these EX augments can be transferred over to regular weapons. Interesting. So they'll be delivering these new EX augments for us to be able to use. Now, the EX augments will come in batches of 3 that drop on each weapon, and they can be transferred over to regular weapons or other weapons of the same type. And it can be transferred from weapon to weapon. It doesn't have to be the same. They mentioned it doesn't have to be the same series. I don't know if they mentioned it doesn't have to be the same rarity specifically, but we'll have to see when we get a hold of it. I don't remember that being part of the conversation. However, they mentioned specifically it does not have to be the same series weapon. You can transfer them between any weapons. You have no problem whatsoever with that process. So that was super, super awesome to hear about. We were all very excited when it came to the new weapons, as well as the new augment system, as well as augmentation transfer being announced. That one is huge. So the way this works and the way this process is going to work is you have the ability to take what they call a base item and then what they call a material item. And the base item will be what you transfer your augments to. The material item will be what you transfer your augments from. So let's say, for example, I had my unit here. I want to transfer to a new unit. I would get a new unit that had basically either just junk augments on it or had nothing on it. I would take my current augment and I would use it as a material. I'd pick the base and I'd transfer all these augments over. They show specifically that it includes the Andy capsule. So those people that out there that thought, oh, maybe it won't transfer capsules or something like that. No, it includes everything. They specifically say everything. That way you can't like pick and choose. You can't like transfer 5 or 6 augments out of it. From what we can tell, it looks like it transfers them all over. They did mention that the material item does have to have more augments or augmentation. They mentioned it has to have more augments. I'm not sure if they meant augment slots or just augments in general than the base amount. So you can't like cherry pick. You can't have one piece of gear with one augment that's really expensive, another piece of gear with another augment that's really expensive. I assume they do that so you can't like go out and get multiple pieces of gear and then transfer over and over again to kind of build the best piece of gear. I guess they're looking for you to just transfer everything over altogether. I mean, it's up to you how you feel about that. I think more choice is better overall, but this is totally fine in my opinion. But the way this works out is you transfer over all of your stuff onto a new piece of gear. Super awesome. This is going to require NMSETA as well as an augmentation transfer pass. They specifically say an augmentation transfer pass, not passes, not a specific number of passes based on the number of augments, an augmentation transfer pass and NMSETA. We're not sure if it's going to be more NMSETA based on more augments or whatever it's supposed to be, so on and so forth, but we'll have to see when the actual piece of content releases. This is pretty big for a couple of reasons. First off, you're no longer required to restart the augmentation process every time you get a new piece of gear. this is pretty huge because there have been, for a while, some augments that have just stuck with us for a very long time. Gladiosol being one of them that has basically just stuck around consistently since it's released. And it's been in the best in slot list since, since how long now? Essentially, we've been using it for quite some time. Now, of course, there's been a new Gigas Maste with Clan Gigas Maste, a new Half Finale with Lux Half Finale, and of course, we got the new Andy capsules. We get new Dominas. The Mega Trials came out, which are very powerful. That you're able to get damage without sacrificing anything, so it's really really nice to have these in the mix. This is basically the best in slot setup if you're playing with a Fatale weapon, at least at Fatale 4, and you're not playing Slayer. I think it's Force or Ranger, because Force and Ranger both can use Wicks, and Slayer uses Termina, and they don't really want. Well, I guess they want more potency and less. They care more mostly about potency. They will take whatever potency floor they can get along with it, but they care mostly about potency overall. So this is mostly close to what the best in slot setup is going to be. I would swap out, of course, the Andy Speed Mail Raw for a Def Mail Raw, but the way the pricing is going at the moment and the difference in damage, I really don't feel like it's worth it. And if you're going higher in, or you're going the Slayer route, of course, you would change out that High Kavar Domina for one of the trials for the 3.5% over the 3%. And that's mostly what you're going for, just as much potency as possible, and then tacking on any floor potency you can get along the way. If you are running Fatale 4, Grand Jared Keeper has been kind of pushed out. I foresee High Kavar Domina getting pushed out as well in that situation, but we are getting a 7th augment slot, so that could be where that gets pushed in. However, this is an asterisk here because we have another thing to talk about with those EX augments that I want to mention here in a little bit, but we'll get there. So when it comes to all this gearing, we're able to basically transfer over our stuff whenever a new piece of gear comes out. We're not worried so much about restarting the entire gearing process, not buying a ton of capsules, not repurchasing a ton of capsules, so on and so forth. It's just when new capsules come out, we start replacing pieces that we need to replace and build ourselves up over time. This is actually awesome. I'm really excited for the system. It is still going to depend on how many of them there are available. That's kind of a big portion of this. However, we've already had a similar system that released with the Master Cubes, where they are primarily available from limited time tasks, as well as what's the other thing? It was like titles, and then over time they became available via like the fragments that were available in shops for resets every week, and then so on and so forth. So they just become more available over time. I assume augmentation transfer passes are going to work similar to the same. So hopefully we'll be able to get enough of them that way when a new piece of gear comes out, we'll be able to, get a hold of that transfer pass and then move our stats over to it. That way we're not restarting the gearing process every single time. Now, I highly doubt there's gonna be enough of them for you to be able to just freely swap between weapons all over the place. Like, I want to switch classes, or, I'm gonna get this newer weapon and build up over time, so on and so forth. It's gonna be something you jump to the strongest one each time that's available. And you'll probably do this once every couple of months, realistically speaking. And those months you'll build up as many passes as you can have to be ready for the next time the gear update comes around. So it allows you to build up over time, which I like a lot. It kind of goes hand in hand with the LC situation, where you were able to set up LC augments and then slowly replace the LC augments with the regular versions to build yourself into best in slot. The problem is that every time a new piece of gear came out, you restarted that process. With augmentation transfer, assuming that it's available at a reasonable rate, you won't have to do that anymore. You'll be able to continue to build yourself up over and over and over the course of time. Super cool process. I'm very excited for it. The only concern I have for it is those guys out there who play on multiple ships. Kind of sucks, because I'm sure some of these are going to be title rewards, and you're going to have to think, well, what ship do I want this title reward on? Meaning it's going to split up my gearing process overall, so it's going to be more difficult for you guys. I still am in the mindset of either combine the ships, do a mega server, or offer just everything cross ship in general when it comes to instance-based content. I prefer the mega ship situation. I just want to play with everyone. This is the problem in all MMOs, in my opinion. And there's some MMOs that get it right, and some that are breaking down the boundaries and allowing people to go across. So we'll have to see how that continues moving forward. They've already talked about the whole multi-ship situation and how they're going to be implementing it into more content, and they're still working on that now. So we'll have to see how that goes, but that's kind of a side project conversation we can talk about later. As far as the gearing process goes overall, it should just be better. It should overall be the better progression for players to just build themselves up. Now, here's the part that might be a bit of an issue for some people. I say that because it's very low in my opinion as far as like concerns. because players are not going to need to restart the gearing process every single time, certain capsules are going to lose value. You're not going to be stacking up 4 Andy capsules every single time these capsules come out, because now you'll be able to transfer this all the way over to a new piece of gear. You won't need to stack tons of Gladius souls. You won't need to have to purchase and have sitting in your bank, 4 Gigas Mastes or 4 Lex Halfinales when the prices are getting to a point where you feel like it's comfortable. To then, of course, use your Protects on to get slapped onto your gear. It's not something you're going to have to do anymore. You'll be able to transfer that information or that gear over. Those augments over, assuming again it's readily available at a reasonable rate. When I say reasonable rate, I mean basically when a new piece of gear and new armor comes out, that's like the new best in slot thing, you'll be able to go ahead and reasonably build up that piece of gear and those augments, or that piece of gear and those units, and then swap your information or swap your augments over to them. So that's just, again, these working on a lot of like assumptions, ifs, and so on and so forth, but those are, we don't know just yet. We know what they've told us and we know what we've dealt with in the past. So I'm pretty confident this is kind of what we're going to be dealing with moving forward. I think they kind of realize that players want to actually be geared up, but they feel like it's not worth it to them personally. Now, worth is different for every individual person, and how much worth it's up to them. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in the comments that'll talk about things like, oh, well, when I'm required to gear up, so on and so forth. I think that's stupid. I'm just to be honest with you, I think it's a dumb take. People don't gear for content. Every MMO is a power fantasy. Gearing is part of the fun of the gear. The gearing and fashion is part of the fun. Look good and smash monsters. That's pretty much the entire process. And if you don't believe me, ask anyone who actually does endgame content in any other MMO and ask them once they got their first clearing content if they stopped getting gear. Yeah, no, they didn't. They got best in slot. Everyone does it. It's all about worth and how much time you're putting in. And for a lot of players, it's not worth it, and I get that. Totally fine. But this other take, I think, is just stupid. As far as gearing goes, this is realistically what's going to help us out moving forward. Now, it is going to mean less players are going to be purchasing these capsules, meaning the active price of them is probably going to go down because the demand's not going to be as high. The supply is going to continue the same. They're not going to change the supply, but the demand is going to lessen. You're not going to need as many of them. Players are not going to be blowing up as many of them. We're not setting up as much pieces of gear, so it's going to be easier. On top of that, you're also going to see probably an influx of players not selling off their gear as often. A very common thing is that when a new weapon comes out or a new piece of gear comes out, players will sell off their old stuff that has the augments on them because they're like best in slot and they're upgraded from that time frame, and other players will just pick them up on the cheap and use them. That's probably gonna happen a lot less. You're probably gonna see a lot less gear that is fully augmented, that's best in slot augmented at the very least, that's just gonna go for sale regularly. Unless players just have a stock of stuff available, you're gonna see that happen a lot less often. So something to keep in mind, that players that used to benefit off of that, it's not gonna be as easy for you to do so. Another thing is, of course, that the capsules being available readily, consistently, but the perceived value of LC capsules is going to go down. The nice thing about LC capsules was that it created a situation where you were able to very bare minimum like gear yourself up with LC capsules and get a decent stat. Like new weapon would come out, new units would come out, and you would run into a situation there with LC capsules and this new stuff that you would still be stronger than you previously were, even if you geared yourself up. You could feasibly move into that and you would just restart the gearing ladder again from that new piece of gear. Well, you don't have to do that if these are going to be readily available, and you'll be able to go ahead and transition into a new piece of gear when it comes out. That does mean that LC capsules are going to be a little bit less useful. Granted, they don't cost anything, as well as they don't need to really they're not sold or anything along those lines, but it does put less of a burden or less of an urgency on the dev team to give updated LC capsules. Things like Lux Halfinale LC, Gigas Mastes LC are probably not going to exist, or they feel like they're less important to exist because you don't need to worry about those things once you have those capsules. You're not worrying about augmenting Lux Halfinale LC or Gigas Mastes LC when you're transferring it from your last piece of gear if you actually got it to stick already. Something to keep in mind moving forward as far as that process goes. And that's just really how I'm kind of feeling about the augmentation transfer pass system altogether. I think it's going to be great for the game. I'm really excited for it. However, there are some things that are going to change that I feel like players aren't really thinking about just yet, that are going to become very obvious when they become a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about them a little bit ahead of time. For this next segment, I actually need to go back in time a little bit. So hold on a second. All right. So here's a place we haven't seen in quite some time. It's base PSO2, man, and my favorite hangout in Franca's Cafe. We spent a lot of time chilling here, doing a lot of quests, doing a lot of oh god, I almost forgot. I divide quest runs and so on and so forth. Just a lot of time hanging out in this exact spot, getting together with everyone and just having a good time. So for this next segment, I wanted to talk about the EX augments they'll be releasing with the coming patch. And there are some things that players have made assumptions about that we don't know for certain. I'm going to talk about all that stuff as well as let you guys know what we do know for certain, and you can make your own inferences based on that information. I'll let you know what I think likely is going to happen, because I mean there is very obvious likelihood of what's going to happen, but we don't know anything is 100%. So I'm not going to present it to you as 100%. I feel like that's just irresponsible. So with EX augments, or with the new 11 stars that are releasing, these EX augments are coming out. And they did mention that each 11 star is going to drop with 3 EX augments. Those augments can be transferred over to any other weapon. It doesn't have to be the same. They mentioned specifically it does not have to be the same series weapon. They don't specify if it has to be the same rarity, but they mentioned it doesn't have to be the same series. So take that for what you will. Likely it's just going to be you can transfer it over to whatever you want is my best guess, but we'll have to see. They also show the transfer process, but one thing they never show together are augments as well as EX augments. They show that the EX augment transfer system will allow you to transfer over to any weapon. They show it while on a blank weapon, right? So they don't show it with other augments on the weapon itself. So we can't tell for certain exactly how that's going to work unless they showed it during the video and I missed it. That's possible. Feel free to either DM me or link me some stuff in the comments below to let me know or let me see about it if that's something you guys noticed. I'd be more than happy to leave a pinned comment correcting that. But as far as what I saw in the video itself, we don't know for certain if these augments are going to take up a slot that our regular augments are taking up. So with this update, we're going to be going up to level 90 weapons and units, meaning that once we get them to 81, we'll be able to go ahead and add in a 7th augment slot, which is huge. But with that, there also may be a possibility that these EX augments take up the same space that our augments take up. And that means that our augments are going to start, or the EX augments are going to start basically eating up the space that we need. So we're not getting 10 augments, we're still getting 7 augments. That is one possibility, that it's going to be 3 EX augments as well as, 4 standard augments, which I think is the likelihood of that situation. I feel like that's the most balanced way of them doing things. There's also the chance that we could end up with 7 augments and then 3 EX augment slots, which is kind of what people are thinking. So this is my weapon from base PSO2. If you actually look over here, you can see that they have these compatibility slots. It's very reminiscent of these super special abilities. I think is what they were, the translation for the JP team. I don't remember exactly what they're called anymore. But these augment slots, they're very reminiscent of these styles of augments. So you have your standard augments that of course give you stats, so on and so forth. Yes, I'm flexing these because I'm very proud of them. I spent a lot of time building this stuff up and a lot of money in game getting this, so I'm very proud of my base game character and all of this stuff. So we have just the basic augments that you would have, Guardian Soul, Grand Might, Divine Order, all that stuff. Then you have these augments here that are very specific, right? Increase critical damage by 4%, damage by 5%, potency increases based on number of augments up to 6%. Like these are the super special abilities that their augmentation slots were a bit different, right? They weren't just raw stat. They are special effects, very closer to potentials in a sense. And these, as you can see, take up the same amount of space that our regular augments do. So we have 8 augment slots. 5 of them can be special abilities. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That means I have to have corresponding in each slot. I can't have 2 1s or 2 2s. It has to be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. But I can also have a 1, a 2, and then the rest of these filled in with regular augments with a maximum of 8. So it's similar to that sort of thought process some people have here, but there's some key things that I want to go ahead and make sure that people are aware of based on what they actually showed off in the trailer stuff. The first thing is they showed off the transfer system, and they again mentioned that you do need to transfer everything. It is 3 augments per weapon. There is no guarantee we can transfer 3 augments and another 3 on top of that. And then some people have this mindset of oh, well, 5 of the EX augments and then 2 regular augments because we have 2 really powerful ones in Gland Gigas Mass Day and Lux Hal Finale, or Gland Gigas Mass Day and or maybe it's Lux Hal Finale or Gland? I can't remember if it's Gland or Lux, whatever, but that in one of the capsules. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be 3 augments no matter what. I think they transfer over, and then like the slap of or like the total of 3 that you pick is going to depend on like the 3 combination that you actually get. So I think that's realistically how it's going to work. You have to get pretty lucky to get 3 that you actually want together. I don't think you're gonna be able to mix and match them. Granted, this is all speculation. It's very, very important to mention this is speculation. I do not know for certain. This is based on how they presented the information. So it's possible that you might be able to pick, do a bit more choosy. It may be a situation where it's 10 augments overall, 3 EX and 7 regular augments. I think it's more likely that it's going to be 3 EX augments, 4 regular augments. It's always going to be 3 because it just seems like that's probably the most balanced way of doing things overall. In the EX augment process, you're going to be able to go ahead and transfer 3 EX augments no matter what. I don't know how it's going to work with a regular transfer system, whether you'll transfer 3 augments and then 3 EX augments and then pick 3 augments that you're not going to keep. If you happen to have a full 7 augments augmented already, I think that's likely how that's going to work. Is like 3 are going to fall off essentially, and it's going to be replaced by EX augments. They're going to overwrite them. Or if you're going to have to be in a situation where you need to put the EX augments on first and then add the regular augments, I don't think that's going to be the case because they present it in a way that you can take EX augments and put them on your wing guard. But we don't know for certain. Again, speculation, take it with a grain of salt. I think the best case scenario situation, and likely what we'll be dealing with, is that you'll have 3 EX augments as well as 4 regular augments, and then you'll just be going based on that. We'll have the 4 strongest augments we can get a hold of, and then the EX augments, they do have just standard power in them. They do have potency, they do have core potency, but they have a lot of like conditionals mixed in. There's some augments that are like, oh, well, this is 4% potency, but if you're at maximum HP or above 95%, it's actually an extra 1.5. So it ends up being even stronger than the regular 4.5% potency. There's some that are like, an extra 25 PP, but you drain like 1 HP every 10 seconds. There's some that is just PP regen. There's some that is build up. There's others that are defensive, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different EX augment choices. We haven't seen all of them. I haven't seen crit rate. If crit rate's a thing, everyone's going to be going after it. It's going to be the most expensive one. It's never going to stop unless you're a Slayer. Well, actually, you might even go for it on Slayer, honestly, because it may be even more. It might be just enough to put you in an even better bracket of crit rate. But we'll have to leave that. We'll leave that up to speculation when it comes out and we actually crunch the numbers on it. But realistically speaking, I think we're gonna end up something similar to this situation here, where we have like the same shared number of space augments. We're not going to have more than is available, but it's going to be a situation where we're not regulated like this, where we have to have one of each, where it'll just be like a combination of 3 you can slap over from your weapon, and it'll be always those 3 kind of grouped together. I think it'd be better if it's like only a maximum of 3 and you can mix and match based on the ones that you get a hold of. That way you're not looking for the perfect combination, which could be even harder to get a hold of. Like if you get 1 really good and 2 really crap augments, that would really suck. That would put the RNG very, very high. But as we know, it's PSO2, and RNG is a very big, it's very big in the actual, the building process of our gearing. So it's something to keep in mind as far as what we're going to be doing moving forward. And that's basically about everything I have to say when it comes to these new augments. I'm really excited about the gearing process for next week. I think we're actually going to be doing an update stream or a maintenance stream, which we haven't done in a very, very long time. To try the new content, to check out the new weapons, to just immerse ourselves in what the new pieces of content is going to be, check out the fighter update, all that good stuff. So it's going to be a fun weekend, or it's going to be a fun week. I'm really, really ready to fully dive in. I mean, of course, we're going to have our expectations tempered. We don't know exactly what we're going to be dealing with overall. We have to find out. We don't know if there's going to be problems, any maintenance, so on and so forth. So let me know what you guys are going to be doing when it comes to the new update. Are you excited to get a hold of the 11 star? Maybe you're someone who didn't pick up a wing guard and you're like, awesome, I got something that's going to be attainable, chaseable, and it sounds like it's going to be really good. Are you someone who is fully geared out and is like, yo, these EX augments look sick, I'm ready to go ahead and slap these on the rest of my gear? Or if you're like, you know what, I'm just going to kick back, relax, enjoy the update, and just make tons and tons of money off selling all the new content. Would love to hear about, or selling all the new drops from the new content. Would love to hear about all that in the comments below. Either way, thanks for watching all the way into the video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe to keep up with more. I'll see you all next time. Take care, my friends. Peace out.